Hello. So we're back to Ghost. And when we left off, Ghost has stolen some sneakers from the department store. They were silver sneakers and they made him feel good. They made him feel like nobody could laugh at him. And then since he is skipping school, a double whammy here, ran all the way to Mr. Charles's store, which is the only place where he feels safe. And Mr. Charles has told him that from now on, sunflower seeds are going to cost $10 until he tells him why he's not in school. Mr. Charles, I moaned, are you serious? Serious as a heart attack, he said, so predictably that I could have said it for him. I looked at him a second. Trying to give him my best puppy dog face, even though I wasn't sure I even had a puppy dog face. Won't work, he said. I leaned against the glass of the big fridge that Mr. Charles kept the deli meats in. Okay, I huffed. I left after social studies because the kids were laughing at me. Mr. Charles came from behind the counter, propped himself up against the ice chest. Come again? I said I left after social studies. Kids were laughing at me. This time louder. Laughing at what? I didn't say nothing. I just hiked my pants up and let my shoes do the talking. Mr. Charles looked down at my mangled kicks and dropped his mouth open. What did you do? He asked, stepping back to get a better view. I cut them, I said, flat out, letting my pants drop back down. I can see that, but why? I wanted to rip open my backpack and say, to make them look more like these, but I didn't, because then Mr. Charles would want to know where I got those dope kicks from and all that, and the next thing you know, he would have jacked the price of sunflower seeds up to $100. I'm on a track team now, and they all got good shoes, low tops, and you can run better in low tops. So you hacked half your sneakers off. Pretty much, I said cool. And today at school, when some of the kids noticed, they laughed. So I left. Please don't tell my mom. I'd been saying that a lot lately. Mr. Charles sighed, then went back behind the counter. He took the bag of seeds back off the hook and set them in front of me. Okay. This one's on me, he said, but when I reached for them, Mr. Charles wouldn't take his hand off the bag. But no more running out of school, especially just because kids are laughing at you. People are always going to be laughing at you, Castle, trust me. You've been laughed at? I asked. I was willing to bet that he never got made fun of. I mean, there was the whole you look like a white James Brown thing, but I wasn't sure if anyone else noticed that or if it was just me. And then there was the almost deaf thing, but I figured that was just because he was old, no big deal. Other than that, what could anybody tease Mr. Charles about? Ha, he hooted. Of course I have. I get laughed at all the time, son. Listen, I come from a family of Einsteins. My brother's a doctor. My sister's a big-time college professor at one of those smarty universities. Both my parents were lawyers. And me? I sell sunflower seeds. What's wrong with that? I asked. Shoot, having your own store seemed like a sweet deal. You ain't never going to pay for no groceries. Nothing wrong with it. Not to me. And you. But to them, they look at me like I'm some kind of letdown. You know what they call this place? Charles's little store, he said, his voice now more serious. Little. Don't let someone call your life, your dreams, little. You hear me? I nodded. He continued, all fired up. Because while they're out there sniffing their own butts, I get to hang out with a big man like you. A future world's greatest, and that's cool. Mr. Charles smiled warm. So we got a deal? No more skipping school? No more skipping school, I agreed all quick. He lifted his hand from the bag, but before I could take him, he slapped his hand back down on it. You're not just saying that to get the seeds, are you? He said, now glaring. Nah, man, for real, no more skipping school. He let go of the sunflower seeds, and I snatched the bag before he changed his mind again. But I didn't breeze out of the store like I normally do. I was still kind of paranoid about being busted by the cops, slammed up against a wall, searched, caught with fancy running shoes in my backpack, and thrown in jail where the cafeteria food is worse than my schools and the hospitals. So I just hung around the store, eating my seeds, while Mr. Charles went through inventory. He had just gotten a drop-off of new stuff. Soda, chips, cleaning products, cereal. You can't just hang out here, Castle. I mean, you're my guy, but you see that sign? Mr. Charles pointed to the one on the window that said no loitering. Ain't nobody loitering. You just see me just spitting seeds on your floor or nothing like that, I protested. I opened my hand so he could see that I had been spitting them into my palm. No, not littering. Loitering, Mr. Charles said, ripping open a box. It means you can't just stand around. Oh, well, you want me to help you with some of these boxes? I asked, hoping he'd say yes. because the only other place I could go was the bus stop, and that was too out in the open. Either that or the track, but I was going to end up there later anyway, and after yesterday, I wasn't down for another double practice. Plus, if the cops were looking for a kid who stole track shoes, they might show up where that kid was using them. So it was best not to be out in the middle of the day alone, period. Mr. Charles studied me for a moment, then thrust a box of cat food in my arms. Here, help me unpack this. The process was simple. There should be 5 of everything, which was really just a weird way for Mr. Charles to keep the store looking neat and organized, and also an easy way for him to know if people were stealing from him. So, for instance, in the fridge, there should be 5 of every soda, 5 of every juice. On the counter shelf, there needed to be 5 of every kind of cereal, even the nasty ones that taste like dirt until you put sugar on them. Same went for chips and cookies, so my job was to look around the store and let Mr. Charles know what was missing. We need 2 orange juices, I said, thumbing through the juices like I was looking for a shirt in the coldest closet ever. Mr. Charles, as usual, didn't hear me. I looked over. He was reading another piece of paper. This time it was one that he pulled from a box. I think it was like a receipt or something to tell him what he was supposed to have in each carton. He never even looked up, didn't hear me at all. Dang, I wonder what it must be like to be hard of hearing. I bet gunshots sound like knocks on the door, which is a scary thought. Sheesh. Anyway, I repeated myself louder. Mr. Charles! This time he looked up. We need 2 orange juices. Mr. Charles nodded, pulled 2 from a box, and handed them to me. Of course, while we were doing all this, I kept an eye on my backpack. I had set it down in a corner at the back of the store. Every time we'd restock some cookies or some dishwashing liquid, I would double-check to make sure it was still there, that my sweet silver babies were still safe. After the counting and the restocking were done, Mr. Charles asked me to move all the leftovers into the stockroom. No problem, I said, struggling to get a grip on the side of one of the bigger cardboard boxes. Is there any order you want me to put them in? Nope, Mr. Charles said, now wiping down the counter. Just stack it all up towards the back so I can get in there and move around, that's all. One by one, I picked up the boxes of ramen noodles, 6 packs of beer, and cases of Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire. Got to be a world record for hardest word. And moved them into the stockroom. Mr. Charles seemed to have relaxed and was now standing behind the counter staring at his old TV again. That made me feel kind of good, like I was doing something to help the old man out. I mean, he had always been so cool to me, such a good dude, that it felt nice to be able to do something good for him. Plus, he was getting up there in age. And even he had that weird flappy turkey neck thing. So lifting these problem boxes was probably getting pretty hard for him. The 6th, or was it the 7th box, was the heaviest. It was filled with gallons of water, which was crazy, because it doesn't seem like water should be that heavy. I mean, it's clear, like air, and air don't weigh nothing. I couldn't even really lift the box. I just kind of held my arms straight and did the caveman walk thing to the stockroom, bumping into everything, including the stockroom door, hoping I'd make it back there before my shoulders popped out of the sockets. The door closed behind me. I dropped the box and used my feet to slide it across the room over to the other boxes, and then I stopped, and for the first time, I had a look around. I can't tell you that I remember anything about what that stockroom looked like when my mom and I had hid in it, but I knew we were in the corner, a corner where there's now a coat rack, and I remember that me and my mom huddled right there up against the wall, her holding me in the face, her hands covering my ears. And now when I think about it, I think she did that so I wouldn't hear her crying or breathing hard, even though I could still see her chest rising and falling at the exact same pace of my own thumping heart. We're going to stop there.